Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott. You are in the Prog Corner. Today we're talking about bands influenced by the great Genesis. Hey, I don't have a hat on. Charlie from Ghost in the Machine said he was frightened when he saw me without a hat on, so we can't have that. We got to put the beanie back on. Anyway, we're talking about Genesis, bands that are directly influenced by them. Yeah, there's plenty of bands that claim influence. You know, Queen was influenced by Genesis, but they don't sound anything like them. Kansas, Simple Minds. Hey, Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, Supper's Ready's his favorite song, and Iron Maiden don't sound nothing like Genesis. And we're not going to talk about bands that were influenced by them. We're going to talk about bands that sound like them, because there's plenty of them. We did Yes last week. There's way more bands that sound like Genesis that have aped the Genesis sound over the years. So I did 12 in my Yes episode. I'm doing 15 here today. Hopefully that'll be all right with you freaks. Genesis is the mightiest of all progressive rock bands, yes, including my beloved Yes. They have sold over 150 million copies. They're one of the biggest bands in the world. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by none other than Trey Anastasio from Phish, and they did Watcher of the Skies. That was pretty cool. So Phish, you can include them in the list of people influenced by Genesis, but they don't sound anything like them. Also, very interesting, due to the combined effect of Genesis selling their catalog last year and the last Domino tour, Genesis was actually the highest paid musical artist, highest paid entertainers in the world in 2022. So, you know, they deserve their money and they got it. Absolutely. Some other bands that sound like Genesis that we're not going to do, Cast from Mexico. I think they sound more like Kansas. Tiger Moth Tails, Pete Jones's outfit. Yeah, very Genesis. Like Crucible, that band from Philadelphia back in the day. They definitely had a Genesis sound. Rael from Argentina. Even the name's a dead giveaway. Yeah, they sound exactly like Genesis. All the neo-prog bands out there. You know, you've got Palace and Jadis and Pendragon and 12th Night and Solstice. Notice a couple I did not mention because they might be on this list. You figure it out. And here we go. At number 15 from Canada, it's Night Winds. This is a band that was touring with Saga and Max Webster and the guys from Clay 2. Really fell in love with them, took them in the studio, recorded an album, and before it could be released, the band broke up. In 1991, Ken Golden from Laser's Edge found the master tapes and finally delivered the album. It's actually really cool. The singer here is Sandy Singers. He sounds probably more like Peter Hamill than Peter Gabriel, but imagine Genesis if Peter Hamill was singing and Chris Squire was on bass. You get a good idea what Night Winds is all about. At number 14, we're going to Poland. I almost didn't include this, but man, oh man, their new album is just sensational. Yeah, I'm talking about Collage. They put out 4 albums in the 90s, all of which were really good, especially Moonshine, but they just dropped a masterpiece last year that I have not really had a chance to talk about called Over and Out. Yeah, it sounds a lot like Genesis for sure. They got a new singer, Bartosz Kozowicz, who came from the band Kedem. And they're still led by their drummer, Wojtek Sedkowski. Even Steve Rothery makes an appearance on this one. Yeah, it's really Genesis-like. Fantastic. If you don't know Collage, if you haven't heard the new Collage album, fantastic. I love it. At number 13, let's go to France and Ange. We're going to spotlight their third album from 1974. I can't pronounce this thing. Odella du Deliri. I just love this. The band is led by Francis DeCamp and his brother Christian. Christian was the singer. He's real theatrical, and these songs are really powerful and emotional. He's no longer in the band, but Francis DeCamp is still in the band, and he's got his son Tristan in the band now, so they're still going. Ange, one of the greatest French prog bands of all. Let's go to Japan with number 12, kids, and a band called Shingetsu. They put out one album in 1979, and they are led by a guy named Makoto Kitayama, who apparently they call him the Japanese Peter Gabriel. I don't really hear it. Musically, yeah, it's chock full of Genesis isms, but vocally, maybe not so much. This band definitely is cleaving to the Wind and Wuthering era of Genesis, and the opening track Oni, just so good, really, really good. At number 11, we're going to Italy and Submarine Silence. Yeah, this is probably an obvious one, in as much as this is a side project for a couple guys from Moongarden. They have a very serious Genesis Jones, so why wouldn't the side project? This is all instrumental, but look at that album cover. Yeah, that is Paul Whitehead. He did the artwork and he did their logo. The other records they've done subsequently keep the Paul Whitehead logo, but they've used some other artists. Ed Unitsky, I think, did one of their covers. Really, really good. I like them a lot. Check it out. If you like 12-string guitars with Taurus bass pedals and Mellotrons, you just might like Submarine Silence. At number 10, we're going to St. Petersburg, Florida, and Babylon, and their one and only album, their self-titled debut that came out in 1978. This is a 5-piece band laid out exactly like you would expect. This was another album that got lost in the sands of time. Only this time it was Greg Walker from Symphonic that rescued this thing. The singer's name is Rod Sacco. He calls himself Doricus. Yeah, he definitely sounds like Gabriel. This band definitely has a Genesis Jones. I really do like Babylon. I've even got the vinyl here somewhere. At number 9, we're going to Sweden and Simon Says. These guys put out 3 albums, and I'm spotlighting their third one, Tardigrade from 2018. I really, really dig it. Yeah, these guys sound a whole bunch like Genesis. The singer's name is Daniel Fault. And, you've got a lot of the passages here on this record where you've got the keys sounding a whole lot like Tony Banks, your guitars sounding a whole lot like Steve Hackett, and it's just great. And there's a fantastic epic on here called Brother Where You Bound, nothing to do with Supertramp, but it's really, really great. At number 8, how can we talk about Genesis influenced bands and not mention Big Big Train? Absolutely. The Spotlight album here I'm talking about is Grimmspound, but you could pick any of them. They all have a Genesis through line running through every single track, the pastoral nature, the quintessential Britishness of it all, the storytelling, the stiff upper lip stoicism as they're telling these stories. The great David Longdon really does sound like a cross between Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins. He's no longer with us, but Big Big Train continues. I love them. And yeah, they're very much indebted to Genesis at number 7. A band that started out as a Genesis tribute band. It's The Watch. They're from Italy, and they've done a whole bunch of Genesis-related touring over the years. These guys actually have 8 albums out, and their albums do vary in terms of how Genesis-y they sound, which is weird. Being a Genesis tribute band, you'd figure they'd sound exactly like Genesis. They really don't, but the singer, Simone Rossetti, he plays keyboards also and sings. He definitely has a Gabriel-esque feel to him, but The Watch is actually a great band, and they're more than just a clone band. At number 6, here's another one that has absolutely nothing to do with being a clone. We're talking about Marillion, and of course they derived a large portion of their sound from Genesis, particularly 4-man Genesis. The first 4 albums of Fish, the great Derek William Dick. Yeah, the comparisons have been floating around forever. They're valid, I guess. The longer Marillion's been around, the less they sound like Genesis. But yeah, those first 4 Fish albums, there's definitely a Genesis influence there. At number 5, let's go to Austria and Kyrie Leson. Yeah, they're not from Australia, like I said. A few months ago, I was doing an obscure album ranking, and for some reason, I kept saying these guys are from Australia, even though they clearly sing with this, German accent, but the album here is The Fountain Beyond the Sunrise. Came out in 1976. They had another album that came out like 10 or 15 years later, but it was just some leftovers and whatnot. But if you like nursery crime era Genesis, you might like this because the production is, kind of along those same lines where it's not really great, not super crisp, but it's really great. The singer here is Michael Schubert, and he's given me all kinds of Gabrielisms. It's a really good album. I like it a lot. I said nursery crime is your, touchstone here, but maybe a little bit of Vandergraaf Generator thrown in there at number 4. We're going right just north Austria. We're going to Germany now, and Neuschwanstein. Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. These guys had exactly one album, Battlement, that came out in 1979. Well, I guess they had a couple of albums that dropped in the 21st century with the, some lineup changes or whatever. But that first Neuschwanstein album, Battlement, man, that thing sounds like the long lost Genesis album that you've never heard. It's really great. If you haven't heard it, check it out, and you might be just freaking out like I was when I heard it the first time. At number 3, Unifawn. Yeah, it's Nad Sylvan. You guys know him as Steve Hackett's singer on all those Genesis Revisited stuff, but he's also worked with Roy Nastalt and Agents of Mercy and a whole bunch of other stuff. Nad is just incredible. He is joined here by a guy named Christian Thornton, who is from my adopted state of Ohio here, up around the Cleveland area. He goes by the name Bonomici, and their one and only album was definitely an attempt to recreate the Genesis sound. I think Nad said this was, the whole idea behind this was creating an album as if Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett never left Genesis, and I think they succeeded. The track on this album you need to hear is Quest for the Last Virtue. Just fantastic. Really, really great. At number 2, it's Citizen Kane. Yeah, if you know anything about Genesis clone bands, you knew this one was going to be coming up, and you knew it was going to be ranked pretty high. I'm going with their second album here, Somewhere But Yesterday from 1994. They're basically two guys in this band. You've got Stuart Bell playing the keys and a guy named Cyrus, whose name is George Scott, on vocals. And yeah, he sounds a lot like Gabriel. Absolutely. They were formed in 1982, but they didn't get around to recording, for a little while, like 10 years it took them to put their first album out. The keeper on this here album that I'm spotlighting is the 25-minute epic, A World in Your Ear, which is the parenthetical title of Somewhere But Yesterday. I guess that's the title track, whatever. It's fantastic, but you got number one right here, boys and girls, and it's IQ. I'm sorry it can't be anything but IQ. I love them. But man, oh man, this band, especially the first two albums and then the next two albums, they kind of went all commercial. But then they came back with Ever and Subterranean, that stuff. And wow, all of a sudden, it just sounded completely like Genesis, especially that album, Dark Matter from 2004. It starts out with a song that sounds a lot like Watcher of the Skies, and it ends with a song that sounds exactly like Supper's Ready, that song Harvest of Souls. It's a great song, but man, it's even structured similarly to Supper's Ready. There's just so many things about IQ that remind us of the greatness of Genesis, but that doesn't make them a clone band. It doesn't make them worthy. I love IQ. In fact, I like all those bands I just mentioned. But anyway, that's my wrap up of the 15 bands that copped the Genesis sound most effectively. And we'll see. I really enjoyed doing this. We'll probably do some more Under the Influence episodes because they're a lot of fun to go back and take a look at who's aping who's stealing what from who. And anyway, I love you guys. Peace in the Middle East, and God save the king. And the ghost of Queen Elizabeth I, because even though we were born 429 years apart, she and I both share September 7th as our birthday. So clearly she's my spirit animal. Love you guys. See you next week.